Hi everyone, in today's video we're going to review factoring techniques. The way that I like to start with reviewing factoring is with this factoring flowchart. It helps me decide what types of factoring to do when. So if you remember from Algebra 2 or Pre-Calc, the first step of factoring should always be GCF, greatest common factor. You want to see if you can find one of those first. If you can, great. If not, then you move on to one of these three boxes here. So if you have two terms, which we'll put here, then the two methods that you can use to factor besides GCF are dots, which stands for difference of two squares, or sum and difference of cubes, which I like to use the acronym SOAP for. And we'll go over that a little bit later. So I'll put sum and difference of cubes. Now, if you have three terms, then you have trinomials. So there's two ways that you could factor. If the leading coefficient, we'll put LC for leading coefficient, is equal to 1, then you're going to use a method called AM. If the leading coefficient is greater than 1, then you're going to use a method called AC or guess and test, depending on what your teacher explained last year. And if you have four or more terms, then you're going to use a concept called grouping. And we'll review all of the different types in greater detail tomorrow, but I'm going to go over four of these types now. So let's take a look at this first example. We've got 2x squared minus 18x plus 40. So the idea is to decide if there's a GCF first. Well, I see that they're all even numbers, so I don't see why I can't divide all pieces by 2. So remember how a GCF works. You put the GCF on the outside, followed by the open parenthesis, and then you divide each of the pieces by 2. Now this step here in red, you don't have to write. I'm just showing it for argument's sake. So these 2's can cancel when you divide, and you're left with x squared. Negative 18 divided by 2 is negative 9x, and 40 divided by 2 is 20. So now this inside is a trinomial, 1, 2, 3 terms, with my leading coefficient really in front there, that's 1. So remember, we're going to use a method called add multiply. So we want to find factors that are going to multiply to 20 that will add to negative 9. So I'm just going to write my factors of 20. Remember that in the calculator, you can use the y equals and do 20 divided by x, and then look at your table of values. That will give you your factors. So 1 and 20, 2 and 10, and 4 and 5. Now just remember, you also could have negatives because we're multiplying to a positive 20. So negative 1 and negative 20, negative 2 and negative 10, and negative 4 and negative 5. So which pair is going to add to the negative 9 on the list? It'll actually be this pair. So to factor it, we're just going to put in x minus 4 and x minus 5. You could have put the minus 5 first. That would have been fine. And don't forget the 2 in front. And that is your final answer. All right, let's take a look at number 2. So what you'll notice is that there's no GCF that we could take out and that the leading coefficient is greater than 1. So this is a trinomial that we're going to have to either use AC or guess and test. If you're a guess and tester, go ahead and solve using guess and test. If you need a review of AC, just pay attention here. So we're going to multiply the first and the last, and that will give us negative 24x squared. And now we want the factors of negative 24x squared that are going to add to this negative 2. So we're still doing the add multiply, except we're multiplying to the product and adding still to the middle number. So if we know our multiplication facts, let's find some factors of negative 24x squared. Remember, the negative could be on either side. So I'm looking for a pair specifically that adds to a negative 2. So I'm thinking it could either be negative 4x and 6x, or positive 4x and negative 6x, because that's the pair that differs by 2. So let's see which pair I'd like. I'm going to go with this one. 4 minus 6 is negative 2. So the way that the AC method works once you find that pair is you're pretty much going to replace this negative 2x, what it's equal to, with that. So 4x minus 6x, and then you bring down everything else. So you're going to bring down the 3x squared, and you're going to bring down the negative 8. And then here's a review of grouping. We've got 4 terms, so we group the first 2 terms, group the second 2 terms, and bring down the sign in the middle. And then we find the GCF of these first 2 terms and the GCF of the second 2 terms. So the GCF of these first 2 terms is simply just x. So we're going to take an x out and divide each piece by x. So 3x squared divided by x is just 3x. And 4x divided by x is just 4. And the GCF between 6x and 8 is nothing other than 2. And you're going to do your division now. So negative 6x divided by a negative 2, be careful there. Negative divided by a negative is a positive, 3x. Now we have a negative 8 divided by a negative 2. So a negative divided by a negative is a positive 4. Now remember with grouping, this last piece here tells us that this is the other GCF. So we're going to take out a 3x plus 4 as my GCF, followed by an open parenthesis. So this term divided by 3x plus 4 is just x. And this term divided by this is just minus 2. And these are my factors. All right, let's move on to the other examples. All right, so I think you guys can actually try this example on your own. So go through the factoring flowchart, take a look at it, try it on your own, pause the video, and then hit resume when you're ready for the answer. All right, this is my answer. All right, so just to go over a couple of things. First, I noticed there was a GCF for all of the terms. If you didn't do that, then you might have an extra x in one of your parentheses at the bottom, so you could take it out at the end if you want and then throw it in the front. The second thing I noticed after I did my grouping was that I had a term that I could use dots for. So x squared minus 4 is a difference of 2 perfect squares. And if you remember how difference of 2 perfect squares works, we just simply say the square root of x squared is x, so that goes here and here. Square root of 4 goes here and here, so x plus 2, x minus 2. All right, let's take a look at the last example. So this last example, if we go through our factoring flow chart, we notice that there's no GCF. We notice that there's 2 terms, but it's not a difference of 2 squares. Yes, it's a difference, but they're not perfect squares. Also, there's cubed exponents of 3, so that gives me a hint that it's actually going to be the sum and difference of cubes formula. So the formula for sum and difference of cubes are as follows. It's some number a to the 3rd power plus or minus some number b to the 3rd power. And the factoring of that is a, b, a squared, ab, and b squared. With the signs here being plus or minus, that last sign is always plus. And I'll talk to you about, the signs a little bit later. So the first thing that we have to do with any SOAP or sum and difference problem is that we have to write it as some number cubed plus or minus some number cubed. So we're going to take that step first. What number to the 3rd power gives me x to the 3rd? Well, just x, right? Then we're going to break down this 125 y to the 3rd. So we have to ask ourselves, what number to the 3rd power gives me 125? And what letter to the 3rd power gives me y to the 3rd? Well, we know y to the 3rd will give me y to the 3rd. And what you could do to find the number in here, you could actually take the cube root of 125. So the cube root is found by going to math in the calculator, I believe it's option 4 for cube root. So we'll make this actually 5. 5 to the 3rd is 125. So we now have A and B. So we're going to follow the pattern. Small parenthesis, long parenthesis. So we've got A, oops, I'm actually just going to write it underneath it, A, B, A squared, AB, and B squared. So the A value is X, that's going to go here. The B value is 5Y, so that's going to go there. Then we're going to take A and square it. So the A is X, so X squared is just X squared. AB goes in here. AB means A times B, so X times 5Y is just 5XY, or YX, whatever you choose. And then B squared, so take this whole term, 5Y, and square it. So square both the 5 and the Y, gives you 25Y squared. And now the signs are very simple. We follow SOAP. Same as the original goes in here. So this one is your same. Opposite of that sign goes in here. So same, opposite. And this last term is always positive. So that is where SOAP comes from. S stands for same, O stands for opposite, A stands for always positive. So SOAP. All right. Now, I know it's been a while since we've done this stuff, so we'll definitely review more of it in class tomorrow. If you have any questions, now is a good time to jot them down, and I'll see you in class tomorrow. Have a good night.